Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Heroes Reborn Iron Man #1, cover dated November 1996. So this cover is by Whilce Portacio, inked by Scott Williams, and there is something about this redesign of the Iron Man armor that looks as up-to-date and as modern and as brand spanking shining new in 1996 as it does even to this day, 2025, the date of the year of making this video. I don't know what it is about this particular redesign, but it does not seem dated to me. It does not seem to me to be dated in the way that Iron Man's original Golden Avenger armor of the early 60s is very visibly dated. This thing seems to me to be evergreen. I don't know why that is, but it is remarkable about it. And you can see in the cover corner box that the Hulk is there because in this reworking of the origin of Iron Man, the Hulk's origin is going to be tied in. So basically 3.5 decades after the origins of these characters, 1961, 1962 Marvel Comics by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and others, we are getting a reworking of the characters' origins for the 90s to bring them up to date at the end of the 20th century. And one thing that is done is, because the Vietnam War is in the distant past, because gamma bomb testing to do with the Cold War is in the distant past, we're going to have a wholly different origin for these characters in this particular issue. This is a double-sized issue as well, 44 pages of story and art by Whilce Portacio. Portacio, someone, a co-founder of Image, but someone who really didn't get the benefit of the buzz around Image in 1992, 1993 because of family tragedy, the illness and subsequent death of his sister. He went back to the Philippines to take care of her and his family and really wasn't able to get Wetworks out into the market in 92, 93 when it would have sold millions of copies based on the buzz he had from his work on X Factor and Uncanny X-Men. So this for me is really when he has a second bite at the cherry with his work, and I think he does a really good job on this. So enough talking about this. Oh yeah, one last thing. What are these? This looks like canvas that is being sucked into the chest plate of his Iron Man armor. I don't know what this thing is here and here. It's something that has always baffled me about this particular cover. And also the fact that he's just standing around with all these wires coming off him instead of some kind of action pose, maybe up against the Hulk. That would have been more dramatic, but I do like the drawing and I do like the redesign of the Iron Man armor. I am reminded of Machine Man as well, and Barry Windsor Smith's work on Machine Man with all the wiring there. So open this one up and we have a splash page to start with. Heart of the matter, and of course we all know that Tony Stark's origin in respect of being Iron Man has to do with, to put it euphemistically, heart troubles. So how is that going to get adapted and transformed for the mid to late 90s? Well, we'll find out shortly. And the creative team here, Scott Lobdell and Jim Lee story, Whilce Portacio pencil, Scott Williams and JD, that's John Dickenson inks, Joe Chiodo and Martin Jimenez colors, Wildstorm effects on the digital computer colors, Rich Starkings and Dave Lampfair at Comicraft on the digital lettering, and that rounds out our creative team. So you can see the digital colors going on here. On this particular page they look good, but there are some subsequent pages where they're far too dark and muddy, where they would have looked fine and well enough on computer screen, I'm pretty sure, but on the paper not looking so good. So I'll point some of that out as we go along. So we see here the red and silver design on a prototype version of the Iron Man armor. Who is wearing the armor? Let's try this again from the top. So it's a flashback. Let's turn the page. Is it Tony Stark in the armor? No, it isn't. Now you're going to see here on these two pages a panel design and layout device of Whilce Portacio. The man is not afraid of white space on the page. He's not afraid of negative space, and he builds it into the design of the pages and panels, and it makes for interesting layouts. Maybe he thought that there was going to be credits here on this particular page beneath the two panels, but in my opinion, I'm fairly happy with the blank white space there. So there's a test going on here. Heat-seeking nuclear warheads again, and here I was hoping for a challenge. Tell me, techies, am I going to severely cut into my oxygen supply if I start yawning? So, who's here in the observation booth? One of the techies says, cute, rebel. But this is a test run of the Prometheus armor. So that's the code name for the armor. Maybe you could pay a little less attention to your comedy and a little more to the suit's EM levels, electromagnetic levels. Is there a problem, gentlemen, asks someone in the background? Not with your design, sir, says the techie here in the foreground, and not with Rebel's performance per se, but, says the man in the back who's wearing a suit. There you can see the collar and tie, necktie, but there's something disconcerting about these EM surges which coincide with any energy spikes. So we're getting action on this page. Classic Whilce Portacio panel borders like the ink brush there, giving a sense of drama and an action. And Rebel here in the armor says, spikes, you mean like capturing both warheads in the suit's tractor beams at once? So he's doing that there. But there's a problem. Rebel, you're pushing the armor past its safeguards. Abort, he says, base, all the onboard systems are triggering at once. Abort, man, abort now. Too late, he says. So what's going to happen? Turn the page. We need to shut down the armor manually, says one of the techies. But look at the power core readings. If we shut down without the failsafe dampeners, and Rebel asks Tony. Tony's there. I'm here, Reb, he says. But look at his face. There's no real expression of horror or sorrow or any major emotion on Tony Stark's face. What version of Tony Stark is this? The reader is conjecturing, wondering, and then comes the explosion. Is this suit going to come out of my paycheck? One last joke. Like Hangman's humor. Mr. Stark, sir, we're sorry, sir. We've lost him. He's dead. And again, we get these classic Whilce Portacio panels. So the panels cracking on the borders in line with the explosion out there. And again, just look at Stark's face and the spotting of blacks and the play of light and shadow as well. So time passes. That was then, this is now. And there's the result of a court case. Someone's acquitted. The location is Stark International Upstate Facility, Buffalo, New York. So the newsreader here is going through the result of this court case. To the surprise of virtually no one, only hours ago, the well-known Playboy billionaire defendant was acquitted in the class action suit of the people of the state of New York versus Anthony Stark. Protests like this one outside Stark's Manhattan residence are taking place all over the country as members of the working class are voicing their disappointment over what they see as just another example of junk justice. So this is an interesting context. The implication that Tony Stark maybe by virtue of being a billionaire, by virtue of being one of the tech elite is connected, and that ordinary justice doesn't apply to him, and maybe some of those things could be applied to certain cultural and political phenomenons in 2025, depending on what your politics are. And there are ordinary Joes watching, the NYPD watching this in the break room, and one of the guys getting very excited here. He was charged with corporate espionage and insider trading, but the prosecution's case was overwhelmed by Stark's legal team. And so he's getting angry there. Let's turn the page, see what this guy's response is going to be. Well, he just seems to go crazy, pulls out his sidearm and starts blasting away at his police colleagues and ranting here. I'm talking about power, I'm talking about revolution, I'm talking about people of this planet taking control over their lives instead of letting the governments and the militaries and the corporations crush the spirit of free-thinking men and women everywhere. I'm talking about the strength that comes with a solidarity of purpose. A thousand arms working in unison, knowing that for each arm severed in defense of our goal, 2 more will take its place. So who does that sound like from the Marvel Universe? Somebody calls in, brother, site secured, proceed with op gamma, acknowledged, hail Hydra, says the guy with that sweat on his upper lip. So that's kind of dramatic. Really great Whilce Portacio art there. Great spotting of blacks as well. But a little kind of continuity detail is It's kind of obscured here. You can see the guy took his hat off, his baseball hat off. He's holding it there by the brim. But when you go from this page here, where it's this guy's watching the TV, getting angry, getting irate with the ponytail out the back, and then you turn the page here and you see him without the baseball cap, you kind of wonder, is it the same guy? And it's kind of obscured because it's in black, it's in silhouette down here that he's holding it by the brim. So that's just a little tiny criticism I have of that. At that moment, some 50 feet plus floors above the streets of New York City. That's a very nice perspective shot there. Who's this? He says as he looks out the window. From up here, they all look like ants. So that's an interesting observation. What kind of character does it bespeak? Does it bespeak the perspective of a scientist, perhaps? And look at this very 90s floppy hair do that he's wearing. And Anthony Stark here in his tuxedo replies, "Don't kid yourself, Bruce." So it's Bruce Banner. So it's Heroes Reborn Bruce Banner. Look at the thick neck that Whilce Portacio has given him. So Stark there is smiling and saying, they are ants. Day in and day out, they strive and struggle and scurry about. And for what? For us, they're the workforce. They're the ones who take their money and place it in our wallets. Our, meaning mine, of course. They hate me for it. They hate me and I tolerate them. But the truth is, we couldn't do it without each other. So Tony Stark here being characterized as a mean-hearted billionaire, tech engineer, genius. And he really doesn't have any empathy for the common people or for his workers. I don't know that it's that the perspective being offered here is political. I feel it's more moral. That's my reading of this. I feel this is more a moral perspective we're asked to apply to this as readers rather than some kind of leftist political perspective. That's just my sense here. Happy Hogan is there as well, so we got the redesign of Happy Hogan. Look at his big thick bull's neck as well. He says, "Cheese and Louise, boss, keep it down." That's exactly the kind of talk that makes my job as your publicist such a pain. So this version of Happy Hogan, not Tony Stark's chauffeur, but rather his publicist. And that's the only reason I pay you as much as I do, Happy, says Tony with that smile on his face, because, Mr. Hogan, I'm among friends here, aren't I? He asks. So let's see, and again you can see the use of the negative space on these pages. A lot more going on this page, and you can see that the colouring's getting darker. It's a little harder to make out some of the black line art details. Now, who is this? So you get an eyeful of this woman with the rather out there kind of like halter top, kind of bikini halter top that she's wearing as part of like an evening dress. "Here in your inner sanctum, Tony," she asks. "Sure, otherwise I'd have to give up my gold embossed business card that reads Liz Ross." So this is Betty Ross, Elizabeth Ross, head of Stark security at Stark International. So strange the ways that these characters are having their kind of professions reconfigured in the Heroes Reborn universe, being updated for the 90s. You can't simply have Betty Ross as a gormless, gold, like good-hearted love interest for Bruce Banner. She's got to have a position like head of security at Stark International, but this is a rather questionable bikini top that she's wearing there, in my opinion. But I have to agree with the flack. She says there are a lot of angry people out there. Maybe now isn't exactly the best time for a victory celebration. So we're getting all of this kind of intrigue and this slow setting up of the characters in the opening half of this issue. I complained about that in respect of Heroes Reborn Fantastic Four #1 by Brandon Choi and Jim Lee. I think it's done better here in this one, and that's because Scott Lobdell is contributing as co-writer of this, doing a much better job of the dialogue on this comic than Brandon Choi did on Fantastic Four #1, in my opinion. So it continues. Look at Stark here, admiring himself in the mirror. What about you, Dr. Banner? Where do you barely weigh in on all of this? So a little crack about Bruce being stick thin. So he says, well, you're not guilty, right? I like this sequence of 3 panels here. So, I mean, I guess, go. Pardon me, Bruce? I think you should go. When have you ever cared about what other people think? Exactly, says Stark, as Bruce looks away. Come, Happy, the masses await. And Happy says back to Bruce, traitor. So out they go, and this leaves Betty and Bruce. There goes the most infuriating, charming, supremely confident, charismatic, contradictory, ice-cold man I've ever met, she says. Go easy on him, Liz, says Bruce. He wasn't always that way. So they were old college buddies. There was the time the 5 of us had Camelot all planned out. They were the atomic knights of the round table, forging the future with our minds. Me, Reed, Victor, Rebel, and Tony. Tony Stark's armor shined the brightest, says Bruce. So what happened, Bruce? Asked Betty. Life, Liz. Life happened. As he takes up and turns down, face down, the photo of the boys, the atomic knights of the round table, from their college days of idealism and vision for the future. So we've seen that in Fantastic Four as well. Let's turn the page and continue with the story. So here is Stark coming down these golden stairs and into the awaiting scrum of journalists. And they're there with questions to ask him. And we have a pair over here at the bar. One of them's drinking. So, Leonard, what is your professional opinion on Stark's behaviour? A bit cocky, no? Sorry, Mr. Sitwell. In light of Dr. Patient Privilege, I'm not at liberty to discuss his state of mind. So this is Dr. Leonard Sampson, a psychiatrist also in the Heroes Reborn universe, a character coming from the Hulk's cast of background characters. And this is Jasper Sitwell. So it is Tony Stark's butler, but he's being recast now. And we'll find out here in the course of the dialogue what it is that he does. So Sitwell says in reply to Sampson, that didn't stop you from testifying on the stand though, did it, Doctor? I believe the buzzword was chronic personality displacement. There are legal pundits who argue it was your testimony alone that kept Stark's entire empire from sinking like a stone. Yeah, he bought companies and sold them off piece by piece, broke promises, broke laws. Welcome to America Hut. Now, this particular speech does remind me of Oliver Stone's Wall Street. It's that kind of political perspective that's coming through there, and like a sense that from Jasper's commentary here that Tony Stark is a little bit like Gordon Gekko in this regard, you know, heartless. And anyway, what does Samson say in his cups? He says, I accept my part in it all, Jasper. That's something I'm going to have to live with for the rest of my life. So this is interesting stuff here. You know, we're seeing these characters in unexpected new lights in the Heroes Reborn universe. This kind of tougher 90s vision of the characters without the black and white morality of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's and Steve Ditko's 1960s characters. It's more shades of moral grey, at least so far. And who's this person in the foreground with crossed arms? Well, and while I can understand their anger and frustration over the loss of their livelihood, says Tony Stark, the judicial system of our country ruled that I didn't act with malice aforethought, with intent when I purchased the New York consortium of businesses. Of course, though, my innocence was clear from the beginning. It would have taken longer to win without my attorney, Ms. Jennifer Walters. So that's who this is over here. So we've all these characters turning up now in this particular issue, obviously pre any what would we say, like adulteration of her bloodstream with her cousin's blood, gamma irradiated blood. Now please enjoy the party, says Tony. And he says it's on the people of the state of New York. And Happy here looking off to the side, the publicist, ouch, thinking there. Okay, so let's continue. Another interesting 2-page spread here. Again, we have the use of negative space. No real backgrounds here, but it all reads very well. So this person turns out to be Pepper Potts. So that is Tony Stark's secretary from the 1960s. But what is she now? It turns out, she says here, Stark International was the first job I had out of high school, and I've been with you for years, Mr. Stark. I've seen you go from the nicest guy in the world into I don't even know what you are now. I only know you have a big empty hole where your heart used to be. It just keeps eating away at anything that was ever good inside you. You don't feel anything anymore, do you? And Stark is just smiling there, do you? And then she throws the wine in his face. Maybe you'll feel this. So we get the reactions there of everyone, and we get their full names here, though, you know, long-time readers would have already figured out who they were, just as I did. Dr. Bruce Banner, Gamma physicist. Happy Hogan, head of public relations for Stark International. Liz Ross, head of security for Stark International. Dr. Leonard Sampson, psychologist. Lieutenant Commander Jasper Sitwell, right? So not just a butler. Jennifer Walters, attorney. Pepper Potts. Oh, so instead of secretary, she's his personal assistant. So that's kind of remained more or less the same. And Anthony Stark himself with the drink in his face. So she storms off. Come dawn, their lives will be changed forever. So that's a pretty good prologue. And great art here by Portacio as well. I like the way the smile, this kind of wicked smile, comes on his face. It's good. Yeah, very good. Let's continue. Now, remember that police officer, that Hydra agent? He has arrived at the commandeered Buffalo Annex of Stark International. So it's been taken over by Hydra. He's there saluting the commander. I've secured the complex just as you instructed me, madame. There is no I or me or you. There is only Hydra, she says. And she looks quite butch in this design, yes, and another big thick Portacio neck there. But this one works out in the gym every single day, you can see. How long until the Gamma chamber is breached, she asks. So one of the techies says, the allegedly superior resources of Stark International have already fallen beneath the boot of Hydra. So phase 3 is to be initiated as this big vault door opens. Then we're back at the party that is going down the tubes. So let's see. Bruce here stops Liz from going after Tony. And she's really annoyed, that pencil pushing geek, she exclaims. She knows the kind of pressure he's been under lately. So she's taking Tony's side against Pepper Potts. So there's some jealousy going on there. Where does she get off? Asks Liz. But look at the drawing here. This is weird. So I'm undecided what is happening here. But when an artist does pencils and there is an inker, the inker is responsible for the finished image. And look at the face on Liz Ross here, Betty Ross. Look at the kind of like hooded eyes. Look at that flat nose with the nub at the front of the nose. It looks like a kind of like a dog's nose. It's very weird. And what's going on? Is this how it looked in the pencils? Who's inking this? Is it John Dickenson versus Scott Williams? Who is it? But this is weird looking, and I just had to mention it. So Liz continues, it's a matter of security, Bruce, about having the glass of wine thrown in Tony's face. And Bruce responds, funny to me, it looks like a woman in something or other. What an absent alert. Bruce, it's in the Buffalo Annex. Okay, so Bruce recognizes that. Dear God, he says, no one knows what's up there. Could it be a mistake? One way to find out, says Liz. It's my project, Liz. Bruce says, I'm going with you. Jasper Sitwell here recognizes that something's up. And who is this here? Is it Pepper, or is it supposed to be Jennifer Walters? But again, one of those big noses again. It looks weird, just like this big nose on a female character. Strange stuff. So maybe nothing, maybe everything, says Jasper. And now we've got a scene set outside. I really like this. I like the balcony here, the suggestion of how high up they are in respect of the other tall buildings in Manhattan. And Pepper comes out and she says, feel better, worse much, he says. Please, Mr. Stark, tell me you talked to somebody about, he says, about whatever it is that happened to you that changed everything. It's like you trapped yourself into this emotional armor and threw away the key. And he says, I came out here, Pepper, so there wouldn't be any misunderstanding between us. I wanted to make sure you realize you're fired. So she's taken aback by that, even as she was resting against his chest. And having worked for him from when she was in high school, goodbye, Mr. Stark, and good luck. And he tightens up, or does he undo his collar there? It's an intriguing page, and the reader's left to conjecture what's happened to Tony Stark. Did his heart harden after what happened to his friend, college friend Rebel O'Reilly? Is that why he's been so heartless since then? Was that the origin of it? Let's see. And who comes out to see him on the balcony except for, who is it? Is it Sitwell or is it Samson? Oh no, it's Samson. I put up with you and your new age psychobabble, says Tony, for as long as it could help me win my case, Leonard. Let's not confuse the issue by having you suddenly think your opinion actually means anything to me, eh? Otherwise you'll find yourself standing behind Potts on the unemployment line. What then? Anthony asks Samson. You get rid of Pepper and me, then anyone whose opinions you can't buy or bully. The world, according to Anthony Stark, are nothing at all. For a man who made a career as a brilliant inventor, someone who built things up from nothing, you spend an inordinate amount of time and energy tearing things down. You don't have to answer me, Anthony. I doubt you could if you wanted to, but someday you're going to have to answer why you started taking things apart instead of putting things together. So he's up there on the ledge of the balcony. What's he going to do? Is he going to jump? Here's a question for you, Doctor. He says, is Tony Stark a man who's on top of the world or simply a man on the edge? So Samson replies, I can tell you this, keep pushing people away, the people who truly care for you, and believe it or not, they still exist. And whether you fall from the edge or from the top of the world, there'll be nobody left to help pick up the pieces. So Stark steps down from the balcony, it would seem. And there we go. So it's interesting, this characterization of Tony as empty of warm human emotions, having basically cut himself off from his friends, firing Pepper, the whole stuff about his heartlessness, and so on and so forth. And what's it all leading up to and towards? Let's continue with the story. Soon, Buffalo Annex. So now we're getting into the superhero stuff after all of that. So what's happening is that Liz and Bruce are approaching in this craft. Liz realizes that something's wrong with the chatter regarding their arrival. So she starts firing on this office, or not office, but like the base itself. Docking procedures are strictly enforced, Bruce, she says. Security crafts are never identified by name, and nobody in the tower. Okay, so like the tower, the security tower, she's blasting at it. So much is blinked when I hail them. That can only mean the place is being commandeered. So she's right. Die in the name of Hydra, says this guy. Is it the guy from the police station? Well, it looks like the helicopter might have shields or something like that in this particular image. So she's not perturbed by being shot at. Hail Hydra, yells the guy. Yeah, hail this, and she blows him to absolute bits and smithereens. But there's someone still alive, stepping through the wreckage. It's Madame Hydra there. Her. So Liz recognizes her. Bruce, call for backup. So she knows what's up, and then what's this shadow across the side of her face? I can't, he says. And she's knocked into unconsciousness. And this is a Whilce Portacio device here, like the falling panels, just like dominoes, falling over like that. It's nicely done. Then we're with Stark in a seldom used boardroom in Stark's Manhattan complex. And who's he with now? He's with Lieutenant Commander Jasper Sitwell. And what are they talking about? Well, Sitwell says to Stark, he says, you were the head of the most powerful, most prolific, most widespread electronics conglomerate in the world, Stark. The world. You built a modern day empire with your own two hands. Does that change a person? Yes, he says. But words like good or bad, people like you and I are above such labels. We have to be in order to do what we do. So Sitwell, a bit of a Nietzschean here. Let's continue. Stark basically doesn't respond to any of that. He simply asks, what's that sound? So Sitwell says, it appears to be an emergency security breach beacon from one of your field operatives. Nothing to worry about though. I saw Commander Ross leave earlier. I'm sure she's already looking into it. It's nothing she can't handle, I'm certain, he says. Stark says, maybe I should. Please, Mr. Stark. Jasper interrupts. Do what you do best. If it'll make you feel any better, I'll investigate. You've a party to get back to. So Stark just sitting there at the end of the long boardroom table. We have a sense that he's not happy at all. Upstate, the Gamma Chamber. So what's happening here? We have Madame Hydra. We've got Bruce. She's saying, our job here is done, Dr. Banner. What are you talking about? He says. You haven't even removed the bomb from its silo. So he was working with them. There has been a slight change of plans, she says to him. Not to worry though. We still plan on destroying the bomb, but disassembling it would be so cumbersome. Instead, we're going to detonate it right now. So Bruce has been betrayed. Are you insane? Can you even begin to understand what that would mean in loss of human life? I'm not going to allow it. So she kicks him in the face. He's knocked unconscious. You're not going to allow us to do anything, but don't worry about feeling guilty for your misguided help. By the time you wake up, you and half the eastern seaboard will be dead. Okay, so we've got real peril now in the last part of this 44-page story. 5 minutes later, Liz wakes up. Nothing. She's looking at the Gamma Chamber. The entire complex is abandoned and the Gamma Chamber is sealed, but Bruce is inside, unconscious. So she starts banging on the window, trying to open the door. The computer won't abort the detonation. Meanwhile, Tony's going to join Sitwell on this helicopter. I really like this. So you can see that most of the helicopter is in silhouette. Only small little details are there to suggest the detail of the tech of the helicopter. It's an interesting device for any artist to imitate. You don't have to draw all the details. You can suggest them with silhouette and strategically left open white spaces. It's clever stuff. So they get aboard and Tony tells Jasper, one more word, just one, and you'll be riding in the trunk. Tony Stark is going. But why don't we see his face? Like, we're not seeing the expression on his face, so we don't know what he's about just yet. When all's said and done, he says, I'm still in charge of every aspect of Stark International, no matter how far removed. Pilot, take us out. Okay, so we're going to see everything come together. Bruce is in the Gamma Chamber. He knows what's going on. And when Liz says, you have to let me in there, we can figure a way to disarm it, he says, no, this is my fault, I'll fix it. It's not your fault, Bruce, she says. You only created the thing. It's the people who took over the complex that are responsible. Now let me in there before it's too late. But Bruce has made up his mind. It's already too late, Liz. The failsafe, they disabled it. So he's not coming out. Bruce, please come out. The chamber might contain the blast. He says, it doesn't work that way. There's only one possible chance, and we both know what it is. So there was some ultimate abort. And he's pulling this lever. She knows what that is. Now this is a little bit crazy. That pupil is a little higher. They're mismatched. That's something you can correct if you flip over a drawing as you're drawing it. You can see and align something like that. But obviously there wasn't time to do that here, so it looks a bit weird. But however, so she's begging him. This is like shades of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, isn't there? He's going to sacrifice himself for the greater good. 13 miles straight down, he says, into the center of the earth, Liz. Tons of rock and stone, providing a buffer between the most destructive weapon ever created by me, and some 12 million innocent lives. It's a slim hope, but better than no hope at all. And then he goes, then he shoots. So 13 miles straight down, and Liz shouting after him. That's good. So we get like this reworking of Bruce Banner's heroism, different from the original origin story where he runs out into the test area to save Rick Jones. This is different. He's saving not merely one person like Rick Jones, but 12 million people by doing this. Someday, Liz, he says, when the whole story comes out, maybe you'll forgive me. So he's feeling tremendous guilt. This is a good shot of her. Please God, don't take him, because of course Liz Ross is a Catholic woman, and she is, appealing there on the basis of her, religious faith and trust. And I like to see that characterization in comics as well now and then. While the silo is sealed shut behind him, Liz Ross is the sole witness. And look at the cruciform shape as it shuts as well. Sole witness, as the most brilliant gamma physicist in the world for all intents and purposes, ceases to exist as we knew him. So he's sacrificing himself. Again, it's like that Christian subtext going on here, sacrificing himself for others. 15 minutes and 10 miles later, there was a time, Jasper, says Tony Stark, when I used to thrive on this, the unexpected, the next discovery. And Jasper replies, finding what was broken and fixing it. And so interesting, we can't see his face, 100% of his face. We don't see his eyes. It's deliberately kept from us. That's very, very intriguing. Jasper says, I'm afraid this isn't going to be all that exciting, sir. The Buffalo Annex of Stark International has been running on a skeleton crew for the past 4 years, just like you ordered. So, of course, that would have left them open to infiltration by Hydra. Anyway, he continues and says, I can't imagine there is anything there of any interest whatsoever. But if checking out a faulty alarm system is what it will take to take your mind off your recent trouble, so be it. So the pilot here calls back, sirs, I think you should see this. And this is a cool panel. You just see the green glow coming out of the hole there. That's really well done. And just no captions there. That's good by Lobdell. Don't describe it, just show it. Just the sense of foreboding there. And Stark looking down. What is that? An explosion less than 10 miles out from the annex. Still think we're dealing with a faulty alarm, he says to Jasper. Look closer, Stark. That crater was created from within, says the pilot, maybe? Or is it Jasper? Maybe it's Jasper here with that piece on the side of his head. As if something from below crawled its way out. And then just look at the repeated panel there. That's got to be a Xerox panel there. Intriguing. Like what's the meaning of it? And here over here as well. Is it supposed to be that we're thinking of like a film strip or something? Anyway, this I really like how atmospheric it is. Look at the colouring. It's getting darker. It is nighttime, but the colouring is getting a bit murky here. It would have been clearer on computer screen, point I made earlier. Pilot, kill the lights, says Stark. Full cloak, maintain radio silence. So this is like a horror movie at this point. 5 miles to Annex, 3 miles perimeter breach. We have an intruder on the grounds. I'm going to call for backup. Stark, he's about to say, look at that huge hulking figure there in infrared. Or in the night goggles, like the red of the night goggles there, night vision goggles. No, don't. Not yet, Jasper. Not until we know what it is we're dealing with. Look at his eyes are open. Pilot, illuminate our guest. So, who or what is that? And actually, you can see that massive back reflected in Stark's pupils. That's an interesting detail there. And here we go. Here's our first big look at the Hulk. And it's that face, that side profile that we have on the cover there in the corner box. So massive. Look at the size of those muscles. So Portacio doing a really stellar version of the Hulk there for the 90s with that 90s floppy hair. Bruce Banner's hair, gamma irradiated. So they're wondering, what in the name of heaven? I don't think that's where it came from, Jasper says. Stark, it might not be human at all. So the readings, Jasper replies, it's as if that creature were one hulking mass of gamma energy. So we're getting the idea of calling it the Hulk. And Hulk, what version of the Hulk is this? It's the simple-minded Hulk. The childlike Hulk that wants to be left alone. Light bright, go away from me, he exclaims. So good advice, they can hear him. Pilot, get us out of here now, says Jasper. Look at the size of that rock. That thing is lifting. Pull up. Light will not leave. Then light will be smashed. So look at this huge rock he's grabbed. Look at the perfectly manicured nails as well on the Hulk. And throws it at the chopper, destroying it. So this, look, notice how the pace is picking up here as we've gotten to the action. There, exclaims the Hulk. It's on the ground. Now to search for friend. So who's he talking about? So Stark pulls Jasper out of the wreckage, and it's too late for the pilot. Or sorry, rather, maybe the pilot is dead already. So Tony pulls Jasper out. Don't worry about me, Stark. Too late, says Tony. No, I meant it, Tony. I'm too busted up to help, and you need to worry about yourself. And look at this big chunk of shrapnel stuck in his chest. So here we go. Instead of that, was it a landmine that exploded in Vietnam in 1962? Now we have a piece of shrapnel from the helicopter knocked down by the Hulk. Jasper's right, says Stark as he's bleeding out, losing blood by the quart. Hate to leave him there, but if the shrapnel reaches my heart, I'm a dead man, he says. But there's a reason I shut down this place. Even if it's clear the place has been active for a while, this is where everything went sour for Rebel. Okay, so connecting back to the beginning, it's where I tried to bury my past, and maybe where he left his heart. Yes? So what's he opening here? The armor. And looks like another iteration of it. Ironic then that my greatest failure is my only chance. Project Prometheus Rising, a self-contained armory and mobile life support unit, a walking, flying, invincible body armor. It destroyed my best friend's life. Will it save my own, he asks? Well, maybe we can allow him that he's talking aloud to himself because of the blood loss. Elsewhere in the complex, who's the friend that Hulk was looking for? It's Liz. Liz, no reason to run, he says. You're safe. Safe with friend. And look at this big smile on Sitwell's face. Amazing. That creature almost seems attracted to Commander Ross. But what's she doing here by herself? What happened to Banner, let alone the Gamma Bomb? Why does he have the smile? It makes me suspicious of him. Turn the page, double page spread, and we've come to the end of the issue. And we get a really good look again at Portacio's redesign of the Iron Man armor. And it looks pretty cool. So, let her go, he says, and step aside. And Hulk replies, Liz is safe. Liz is with friend. Go away, Iron Man. Go away or be smashed. So, I kind of find it really interesting and funny that, we start with all the intrigue, all the kind of moral themes and moral grey areas at the beginning of the issue. It's like kind of like a novel, really. But then we end and we're right into maybe what we wanted from the very beginning, superheroics. Just look at that. What a great image. Maybe we should have had that much earlier in the issue. That's my kind of complaint as well with or criticism of Heroes Reborn Fantastic Four #1, that it just takes too long to get to the action and get the Fantastic Four into their suits. But I like this one better. This one works better than Heroes Reborn Fantastic Four #1, and it is because of the fact that Scott Lobdell here is involved with the story. So he's contributing to the story ideas. It's not just Jim Lee's plot here, and Lobdell is making it better, in my opinion. So there you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this rather long review and commentary on, well, there is 44 pages of story and art here. Heroes Reborn Iron Man #1. Did you pick this one up off the stands way back in at the end of 1996? And what were your thoughts on it then and now? I think it stands up not too bad in 2025. For me, it's the strongest of the Heroes Reborn titles, at least so far. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.